Welcome into Seattle Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Senior. He is Matthew Peterson. It is day 5 of NFL free agency, and the biggest domino that we were waiting to fall was the Deshaun Watson trade. Now, the Seahawks were never really invested in Deshaun Watson. He had a no-trade clause. According to reports out there, he didn't want to get traded to the Seattle Seahawks, and in a monster move that has really ripple effects across the National Football League, he's been traded to the Cleveland Browns. So this impacts Seattle in terms of the quarterback market and a potential trade that could take place for their next quarterback as a Russell Wilson replacement. This coming in from Dov Kleiman. He said Browns quarterback Baker Mayfield informed the team he prefers a trade to 2 destinations, the Indianapolis Colts or the Seattle Seahawks. Some of you watching might ask, why not the New Orleans Saints? They are bringing back Jameis Winston, who was having a pretty decent year last year before tearing his ACL. But Matthew Peterson, I'm going to bring you onto the set. You were reacting to the Deshaun Watson trade on the Cleveland Browns report. For Baker Mayfield now, a deal and a trade seems to be inevitable and imminent. What happens if the Seahawks trade for Baker Mayfield, and what player are they getting?
So let's first talk about the idea of trading for Baker and what that could cost. I think Baker's going to go for maybe a second or a third. Hard to say. He is coming off a shoulder surgery. So the Seahawks are going to use that in their advantage in negotiations with Cleveland, who, by the way, they have to get rid of Baker. So they don't have much leverage. So Seattle did pick up some picks from Denver, so that makes it a little easier. And ultimately, this could go one of 2 ways, right? You could get Sam Darnold and have it cost you a second and it be a horrible trade. Or you could get your franchise QB. If you think the Browns messed up Baker, didn't maximize him to his potential, whatever you want to spin zone yourself to doing to sell yourself on Baker and have it only cost you a second or a third, that's highway robbery. So as for the player they're getting at Baker Mayfield, they're getting a guy who loves football, he loves his teammates, he loves the team. They're getting a competitor. That's Baker Mayfield. We've known that since his days in college. He wants to win, and sometimes his emotions maybe overshadow who he is as a player, but Baker Mayfield had a bad season in 2021. He also got hurt in week 2 after being sacked and tore his rotator cuff and then tore his humerus a couple weeks later against the Cardinals in week 6, I think. So Baker Mayfield is a QB. He's up and down. He's a roller coaster. He's had some good points in his career. He also had some bad points. He also had the most touchdowns by any rookie quarterback in his rookie season. So there's a lot to digest when it comes to Baker Mayfield if you're a Seahawks fan. But I think you ask yourself this question. Is Baker Mayfield better than 2 things? Any QB in this draft or Drew Lock? I think the answer is yes. Is he so much better that he's worth a draft pick?
Yeah.
That's the follow-up question.
And here's the thing about Baker Mayfield. Like, everybody focuses in on him being an emotional guy and the tenure with the Cleveland Browns really fizzling out, and it certainly did. But he was drafted number 1 overall as a surprise, but also he was drafted number 1 overall because he does have some ability. He has some talent. Very good arm strength, decent mobility, and a quarterback who can win you games. I mean, he helped lead the Cleveland Browns to their first playoff win since the 1990s last year for a dysfunctional franchise that was really down in the dumps. So Baker Mayfield can certainly still play, and if the Seahawks were to trade for him, 1, he's on his rookie contract, so the contract is really not all that crazy.
$18 million on 1 year.
He is better than Drew Lock or a Geno Smith type of player. So should the Seahawks trade for Baker Mayfield? 12s. Show up, show out in the comments section. Let us know what you think. Type Y for yes or type N for no. We know that you're a very passionate fan base there in the Pacific Northwest. That's why you got to subscribe to the channel as well. But we want you to treat the comment section like a sports talk radio call-in line and let us know if you think the Seahawks should trade for Baker Mayfield.
And to go off that, Chase, one last thing here before we move on to the next story. If you really want to sell yourself on Baker, you know who also switched teams to hurting his shoulder? Drew Brees.
Drew Brees.
You just tell yourself that enough.
You know who also has an injured shoulder? Jimmy Garoppolo.
Okay.
To Carlos Dunlap now. He has been cut by the Seattle Seahawks. Was a big trade acquisition back 2 years ago during the 2020 season. And at defensive tackle, a guy who can also kind of line up on the edge as well. I thought he was pretty good for Seattle in 2021, coming over from the Cincinnati Bengals where he wasn't getting playing time. That's why he got dealt to Seattle. Had a pretty good year. 35 tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 8.5 sacks, 7 pass breakups. I think one of the underrated aspects of his game. He does a really good job with that size of 6'6", 280-plus pounds of putting his arms up to deflect passes from opposing quarterbacks. You can combine that with the fact that, that he's really good at rushing the passer. I think he's going to have value out there on the open market. Was a very successful player with the Cincinnati Bengals, put up a bunch of big numbers, came to Seattle because really they were pressured to make a win-now move 2 years ago, and he was pretty good upon that trade, making impact plays, but now it's really a salary cap saver and a money saver for Seattle to move on from Carlos Dunlap.
And to go off of that, too, this is a Seahawks team that I don't really know if they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Are they retooling or are they rebuilding? If they get Baker Mayfield, they're retooling. If they decide to roll with a rookie or Drew Lock, they're rebuilding. But they know right now they don't want to commit to any big contracts, or they're not feeling like they're going to win a Super Bowl in 2022. So why not free up some money? That way you can be big spenders, say, in 2023 with a better QB draft class, and you can, be bigger spenders then. Get some other news here in the Seahawks world. Kerry Hyder was cut as well by Seattle. Bit of a disappointing season in 2021, only tallying 1.5 sacks. Chase is a Seahawks team that defensively they have gone away from what we know them to be. The Legion of Boom is far over right now, so I think we're finding out what this next Seahawks front and defense is going to look like as they begin to try and find some new pieces to work around. Also, Bobby Wagner, that's his old news here, done in Seattle. So I think we're seeing Pete Carroll, John Schneider hit a hard reset button and not want to have these bigger-ish contracts on their books when they don't feel like they're in a win position right now with these guys. So why not just, get some extra money in the piggy bank, and we'll cross this bridge later once we got a quarterback we feel can really help win us some football games.
Yeah, so, and it's been weird for Seattle the last couple of years because Pete Carroll, look, he came to Seattle, Pacific Northwest out of USC, and when he was at USC, I mean, he had that program humming, right? But really the consistent theme upon, Pete Carroll coming to Seattle with the Seahawks, they made it to those back-to-back Super Bowls. They won one. But the mainstay for that organization was defense. But the last couple of years, they have not been a good defensive football team. That's a big reason why they changed defensive coordinators, and they're moving in this new era, as we've talked about here on the channel. And really, they've been somewhat aggressive in free agency so far. And because of the fact that they've made some of those moves, they've had to cut bait with some of these players like Kerry Hyder on this roster. Now, this is why you subscribe to Seattle Seahawks Today by Chat Sports. We are really closing in on 26,000 subscribers. If you want the best Seahawks news and rumors here on YouTube, it's interactive, informative, consistent, and involves the audience, then you got to hit that red sub button down below or go to youtube.com/SeahawksTV. A move that Seattle made. They signed Quinton Jefferson. Signed with the Seahawks, 2-year deal. We'll see what the details are. But the initial takeaways here, Matthew Peterson, as Seattle continues to make a flurry of moves in NFL free agency.
Yeah, I'm thinking in terms of my reaction or takeaway from this is it's a little bit of, I don't know if it's one step forward, 2 steps back, but more as a fan, you're like, what are we trying to accomplish right now? I mean, like I said earlier, is this a retool or is this a reset? And if they get Baker Mayfield, I don't think they're looking at it as like a reset. And so we go full circle on these other moves that I think in the NFL, a lot of the moves you make are very dependent on who you have as your quarterback. You don't go out and get big-name players always if you don't feel like you're ready to compete. And at the same time, you got to spend some money or else you're not going to have any butts in your seats to watch you guys lose. But you got to have, you got to be able to stay competitive, especially in the NFC West where we have known it to be one of the toughest divisions in football. So let me ask this question to wrap up the show. Grade the Seahawks move so far. A, B, C, D, or F. Let us know the letter grade down below. I guess if you factor in the Russell Wilson trade, it'll be hard to find anything better than C. But with maybe just free agency
Transitional
signings.
phase.
Exactly. Let us know what you think in the comments below.